Hello, book flowers and book potatoes and whatever else book people you are. I'm cozy right now. I'm in a super lush blanket and I thought maybe you could get cozy too. Maybe you could grab a cup of tea and come join me. Today we are talking about the books that I read in June, my thoughts on them, and maybe some of my plans for reading in the next month. So June was interesting because I have started my master's program and 3 of the books I read this month were like required reading, but they were all middle grade books. So the 3 books that were required reading were Restart by Gordon Corman, The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, and Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. I liked all of them. They're all very different. I would say my least favorite was Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. I liked it. I liked how the main character was this kind of profoundly gifted student, and I liked her, but for some reason I never felt that much like sympathy or connection with her. And since so much of the story was about relating to her hardships, I do think that I struggled there. But it was wonderful for the perspective it offered, the ability to get inside the mind of a child who is so profoundly gifted. It was enlightening. So it was a fun book, but not my favorite. My favorite out of the 3 was The Westing Game, which you've probably heard about. It's a classic in the middle grade world and basically is the story of these... It's kind of like And Then There Were None for children and with less murder, because basically what it is these people are all mysteriously brought into this hotel and then given clues to solve the murder of this Mr. Westing character. And so you follow their interactions as they try to race each other to solving the mystery, and it's so darn hilarious. Like, I did not expect to be laughing as much as I did in a murder book, but it was great and so fun. Restart was a really cool book too, though, by Gordon Corman. So in this book, the main character, he is kind of, well, he's a bully, right? But then this thing happens and he falls off the roof of his house and completely loses his memory. So he has full amnesia and is basically given the chance to restart his life. He goes back to school and he joins the video club instead of being on the football team, but he struggles to come to terms with this past version of who he was. And so the book is kind of like a questioning of identity. Who am I in this world? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? And I think it has a great message, especially for people in middle school where issues of identity and friends and belonging are a really big concern. I think it could be especially good for those students. But as for like myself, like I enjoyed the humor and the premise of the book. All right, so when I'm off on my summer break, I love to do puzzles as much as possible. So I have been listening to audiobooks while I do my puzzles, and I just have been really into listening to thriller books. So I've listened and finished 2 thrillers this month. The first one was They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. Oh my word, it is the craziest book. It's about this professor who has been wronged by so many men in her life that she decides, you know, I'm just gonna go and murder every man who does anything wrong to me. And that's what she does. And so you have kind of a parallel timeline thing going on where you have kind of the backstory of what made her want to murder all these bad men, and then you have the actual murdering, and it's just so creepy. And I mean, to be in the mind of a killer like that, so creepy, so intriguing. I loved it. The next thriller book I listened to was The Wife Upstairs. And this book, think of it as like Jane Eyre and Rebecca meet like contemporary times. It was pretty interesting, not as good as They Never Learn. And honestly, the association to Jane Eyre and Rebecca is very loose because the ending is like this massive twist. I won't say much more about it. I mean, this is a thriller, but the story is fast-paced. The characters, not so likable, like none of them. And I feel like you need at least one likable character in a story, personally. So those are all reasons why it wasn't like top tier thriller for me. All right, last two books. I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd for my book club, the Top Shelf Society. Shameless plug, we are reading Firekeeper's Daughter for the month of July. So more details about that will be in my description box. But if you'd like to read that book and join us, that would be really cool. Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I thought was phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I think that this book really started like a trope in literature that I can't talk about because it would spoil the book, but I understand why it's kind of this like groundbreaking, like most famous of Agatha Christie books. And what she intended in writing the book completely happened for me, and I still get kind of shivers thinking about it. So, like, briefest of synopsis here, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is about the murder of Roger Ackroyd, and you have Hercule Poirot and with an assistant helping him named Dr. Shepherd, and they work to piece together the clues from all these variety of people who all have something to hide, you know, typical murder mystery. But it's not a typical murder mystery, and that's what makes it so darn good. And there you have it. Those are the books that I read in June. I would love to know if you've read any of these, and if you did, what were your thoughts on them? I'd also love to know what books you read this month, and do you have like any suggestions for what I can read in July? But yeah, that's it for me now. I hope you stayed nice and cozy. Go have yourself another cup of tea if you haven't already, or a big piping cup of iced coffee, because it's pretty hot all over the world right now. And I'll see you next time. Bye.